We are here for the School is Easy podcast. This is a Director of Development podcast, and I'm here with Vincent Perry. Say hi, Vincent.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, so today we're going to talk about the first call interaction with customers. We're going to talk a little bit about the goals of that first call interaction, and we'll get to the kind of the process, what we think is best practice, what are the different things that we do, what kind of questions come up, the obstacles that get in our way of reaching our goals. All right, so Vince, what do you think, what are your goals when you're talking to a new customer that's called in? What's your primary goals?
So my primary goal is to make sure that something is scheduled when I get off the phone, either a session or another phone call or a meeting with the parent and the student, that there's a really clear sort of next step in the parent's mind, so that when they get off the phone, they don't feel like they need to keep calling other potential tutoring centers. They feel like after they're off the phone with me, they've got a direction and they're on the way to getting whatever their problem is solved.
That's great. So I think that's, I put that down as one of my top priorities too. Like the feeling I want the customer to come away with, but also actually get pretty early in our conversation is calming down, relaxed, and in that I found the solution I was looking for. I found a solution. I have this problem and these guys know, this person knows how to help me. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. So we're going to tie in into some other blogs. We're going to talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. So before we jump into the kind of mechanics of that first call, I want to talk a little bit about key performance indicators. And that specifically, we need to do is be able to measure, so how many prospects are calling and how many are we successfully converting into customers. And when they don't become customers, knowing where we lose them so that we can improve, right? So part of this process is about that record keeping.
Right.
All right. So what do you think is, now that we've got the main goal of I found the solution, so the person feels good about that they found a solution, and at the end of the call, you have a clear next step, something scheduled, either a follow-up call because they didn't have enough time for the full intake, or you've got a follow-up call where we're going to get back to them with the tutor match or whatever the next step is.
Right. Or even, they need to discuss, they might get off the phone and say, okay, I need to talk to son or daughter. I need to talk to husband or wife about this, that we've scheduled a clear time that we'll be following up to check in on them.
Okay, good. All right. And we get that on the calendar.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And they get a reminder or a kind of an invitation for that.
Yeah. So the other important thing to make sure that you're doing at the end of the phone call is writing that communication log, recapping the conversation, recapping everything that was talked about, but in particular, re-emphasizing what that next step is, what that next, and again, the next step, we never rely on the client to follow up on the next step. So they may say, I need to, talk with someone and we'll get back to you. That's perfectly fine, but we're not going to rely on them following up. We're going to say, okay, great. And if I haven't heard back from you by such and such date, I will follow up with a phone call. And that's clearly documented in the communication log as well. New clients love getting those communication logs.
Okay, excellent. All right, so I've got a list of some additional goals that kind of surround this bigger goal of engaging with the customer, getting those first sessions scheduled, but also really developing a long-term relationship, hopefully, with this customer. We're working with them for, the rest of the school year, hopefully for many years, and multiple children. So, here, I'll just go ahead and give you my list. My list is, I want to create a connection with the customer. I don't want this to be just mechanical. I'm a tutor broker. You called me. Okay, I'll find a tutor and match you up. I really want to start working on creating a connection with this person, and developing rapport with them.
Right.
And so what do you, rapport is a kind of a word we don't use a lot. What does rapport mean to you?
I think it means, so when in the context of talking with a new client, it's making sure that the client knows that I understand what the problem is and that I'm going to be a person who is going to be central to helping get that problem solved by showing that I understand their problem, I understand what some possible root causes are to that problem, and that I'm going to be there to help them see through the solution to this problem with some ideas about what the solution might be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I like that. And I actually had those kind of even separated out outside of rapport. And I think that they're really connected.
Yeah.
I think that for me, like, so some of the other goals, developing trust,
Yeah.
right? So this person trusts me that I know what I'm doing and that I'll be able to help. And then also, so that connection, trust, and then I think rapport is also just about likability. Like, this is a person that I like. That this person that clearly cares about kids, and it's not just about the mechanics of
when
business.
when you can predict the kinds of things that the parents are going to say or the issues they're gonna bring up, those can be kind of funny moments. Like a parent can like start laughing a lot of times when I if they mention a certain they have a certain teacher and I make a comment about something I know about that teacher, or likely what the student is experiencing, the parents will laugh oftentimes. Or when I ask questions about the student's background, I ask almost every student about the organization and study skills. And for a lot of parents who call, that's not the purpose of their call. But when they hear that question, they kind of chuckle sometimes about like, well, yeah, I guess actually that's kind of like an obvious thing to ask about, So I make a lot of connections with parents when I show a level of understanding about things the student might be experiencing that the parent didn't even mention. Because usually they're just calling in to say, hey, my kid's got a bad grade in chemistry.
Yeah. It's almost like, when you have that conversation with somebody, when I can see somebody, and I actually kind of like, the initial phone call might happen on the phone. If I can get some face-to-face with somebody, that really helps build rapport. And then if I'm going to be meeting online, can be helpful as well. Just so you have that physical. But one of the things you see when you're there in physical connection with them, or at least can see them, is that head nodding, right? Like you're talking about some things and the parents' heads nodding in agreement. Oh yeah, I've seen that. And that's an issue as well. All right, so we're going to kind of limit the scope of this conversation. We're going to have a lot more of these conversations about these initial calls, but let's talk about some more of the mechanics. Like, so what's the first thing that you do when somebody calls in and they say, hey, I'm calling to get some help for my kid? So what's the first thing that you're going to do with that client?
First question I ask them is, what are they seeing in school? What prompted their call? What are they observing? So when a parent calls and says, oh, my kid needs help in chemistry, I want to get some more information from the parent about what exactly they're seeing, because what they're seeing might determine their causes. So a parent that calls in, they're having trouble with chemistry, if what they're seeing is a student staying up until midnight every night studying chemistry, that's a very different thing from a student who is coming home the day before a test and saying, oh, I didn't know we had a test tomorrow, and those two kids might have the same grade in chemistry, but it's a way for the parent to open up a little bit more and give you more details about their observations.
Okay, good. Yeah, so getting them talking, right?
Yes.
I think that would definitely say.
Yeah, that's summing up what I said, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting them talking about their issues, about the challenges, and sometimes I'll ask some questions to clarification if they're talking about some challenges that the student's having. I want to know, when did they see this? Right? It's kind of like the when, where, what. It's like, when did this problem start? Because that can be a really important kind of piece of the puzzle. Has this been an ongoing issue, or is this an issue that just started recently?
Yeah.
And so getting all of that. I'm also taking some notes down, but I'm really listening intently. So what's the second step that you take?
So after they tell me about what they're observing, parents can sometimes talk quite at length when you ask them an open-ended question, which is great. That's exactly what you want, and they're giving you lots of good information. But the kind of things that I want to, and when I hear something in what they're saying that I've got some specific knowledge about, I'm taking my notes. After that, after they've kind of gone through all that, I'll kind of sum up what it sounds to me like the concern is. You know, I'll tell the parent, okay, I just want to make sure I understand. It seems like the core issue is this, right?
Got it.
And then the parent will agree, maybe they'll disagree.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So I think that that ability to feedback to the parent what you heard. So if they spoke for 15 minutes, you're asking questions, you're going to do 15 minutes of feedback. But like you said, summing it up. And there's two things about that. One, so feeding back is just good to make sure that you got it right. But there's something very powerful about that mirroring. It's actually called mirroring process. It's not only just that you're actually feeding back and using the same language and sometimes the same intonation, whatever that is. So you're building, that's a big, important part of building that rapport and that trust. Yeah. Okay, so feeding back what you heard.
And another part of that also is that just the ability for someone else to take a look at like all the information and data the parent's giving you and being able to kind of analyze and synthesize that into a big picture. Oftentimes that's like a big aha moment for the parent. They're seeing like all these little individual points of problems and difficulties, and you know, they don't have the knowledge or the experience, and that's why they're coming to you to kind of figure out what's the thing that's tying all these things together.
Yeah, and I think that leads into my next part of the process, which is it goes seamlessly, is that we're feeding back to the parent about what the challenges they're seeing. But as we do that, and we go through that process, we're transitioning into providing insight.
Right.
Providing insight about what the underlying cause might be. Now, some of the School is Easy directors have a lot of history, a lot of experience about doing that. And some might be new to School is Easy, but they might be teachers so that they can use that insight. And some don't have a whole lot of experience in their educational background. So there's other series that we're doing that really dig into specific issues so that people develop their confidence and be able to, you know, summarize and provide insight. So it's that insight, though, that really starts to get the parents' ahas going, right? They're having that moment, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. This person knows what he's talking about. I'm in the right place.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So I think that transitions then from that insight to potential solution. So here's the most likely solution that we would suggest in a case like this. Now, we don't know necessarily everything. There might be a number of things that happen, like a parent that says, my child doesn't test well, or they have test anxiety. That may be the case. And there may be some other things that are going on as well, like the student's ability to assess their knowledge before the test, or a disconnect between what the teacher is assigning for homework and what's being shown up on the test. So,
and also this is just the parent's perspective also. I mean, when you have your first, you know, as your director, you may decide that it'd be helpful for you to talk with the student, or even in a first session, part of the instructor's job is to get a sense of what the student thinks the issue is. You know, the parent might be really, really off base about what they think the issues are, or what they're seeing might not be accurate from the student's perspective.
Yeah, and just as an important note, communicating to the parent that they might be really off base might not be a good first step in creating rapport and trust with them. But yes, we know that there might be different causes. And so what we're suggesting to a parent after we've provided some insight is some direction about, you know, these are some potential directions that we would recommend. Now, if this is the first time that a client is talking to you, and it depends upon where they came from. If they came from a direct referral versus off of the website, they're going to have some other questions about prices and policies and things like that. And this is probably after we've kind of suggested some direction, we can probably get into that. If the parent asks about prices earlier in the process, like right at the beginning, I generally going to say is, well, you know, it actually, you know, prices range from, we could say that, they range from here to here, but it really depends upon what the student's needs are. So
which transitions right into a question. Tell me about what's going on.
Tell me about what's going on. And that's absolutely true. That, you know, a student that needs, a very broad range of needs that might reflect different prices, different services. Right. So
and just to emphasize, questions about pricing should, if a direct question is asked about pricing, then yes, you should give an answer, but you should immediately go right into asking questions about what's going on. It depends on the needs of the student. Tell me about what's going on with the student, right?
Yeah, and that's a very natural, real, it's not, you're not saying, hey, our prices are here, but let's, right, you're actually saying, I need to know more in order to help you understand what kind of costs would be involved.
Right.
And honestly, this time that we're giving, even if this client ends up deciding that they can't afford our services, right? The time that we're taking to help them understand the issues a little bit more about some potential causes, even if we end up sending them in a different direction, maybe there's some online place that could help them or something like that that might be more affordable. We're educating somebody about a company, myself as a director, that cares deeply about people and wants to help. So we potentially have created an ambassador that could recommend somebody else, or they might decide later that they want to make that investment. So again, questions about the prices. There's a range of prices, and I can say from here to here, and let's talk about the issues a little bit more. Okay, so to kind of summarize, we talked about, we want to develop that trust and rapport. We want to develop a connection. If somebody came as a referral from somebody else, maybe knowing something about that other person, if we have the lead come in and we know the referral source, reminding ourselves about who that other person is, that can help build that connection.
Right.
But ultimately, we're trying to get to that place at the end of the call where we got something scheduled, either scheduling, if we didn't have a lot of time on this call, the follow-up intake, or scheduling the time when we're going to get back to them to confirm the tutor match, whatever that looks like. So something on
or even a follow-up call after they speak with other decision makers in the family to discuss what you talked about.
If they needed to do that, that's right. And then we're building rapport, building connection, building trust, and we're doing that through listening. We're mirroring, feeding back, and then we're providing insight and potential solutions, and then ultimately a suggested direction. And the suggested direction hopefully leads right into, okay, we're going to find, the parent's going to say, let's do it, and let's find that tutor match and then get back. All right, so I think that's going to conclude it for this session. Anything else that you want to offer?
Just to emphasize, following that phone call, like all phone calls, but in this one, and more important than most, follow that up with a really well-written communication log. A lot of times these parents are out there driving around, or they're not available they're not somewhere where they can take notes or put things on the calendar. Writing out a communication log, recapping the conversation, summarizing, and being really clear about the next step shows just a really high level of professionalism, and parents appreciate that.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Vince. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.